For years, Ferrari's announcements have been easy for rivals to dismiss. A new engine, a bold claim, a promise of horsepower that never quite materialized when the stopwatch told the truth. But when Hamilton and Leclerc walked into the simulation room in Maranello this summer, the atmosphere was different. What they saw wasn't another tweak to the V6 turbo hybrid philosophy. It was a complete reset, a design brief that tore up 2 decades of compromise. At the heart of the shock is the FIA's 2026 reset, a 50-50 split between internal combustion and electric power, fueled entirely by sustainable fuels, and a minimum weight of 768 kilograms. Those numbers alone had engineers across the grid concerned. Heavier energy recovery systems, tighter packaging demands, cooling requirements that could balloon out of control. Many whispered that lap times would slow, that Formula One would become an efficiency contest rather than a spectacle. Ferrari saw the opposite. By designing their engine, Project 678, around compactness and synergy rather than brute force, they turned regulation headaches into design opportunities. Smaller radiators meant slimmer side pods. Slimmer side pods meant cleaner airflow to the floor and diffuser. And that aerodynamic freedom was what stunned Hamilton most. Because Hamilton has never been shy about his struggles with the SF25. The car felt alien to him, uncooperative in slow corners and unpredictable in high-speed direction changes. Watching the simulations of the 678 car, with a slimmer midsection and stable airflow, he could imagine something he hadn't felt since his Mercedes days, confidence that the car would flow with him rather than fight him. Leclerc's silence was even more powerful. This was the driver who had carried Ferrari's weight for half a decade, often forced to defend machinery that wilted under pressure. Seeing a power unit built not just for raw horsepower, but for integration across the car left him momentarily speechless. For once, Ferrari weren't patching holes. They were rethinking the entire philosophy. And the true revelation was still to come. Because if the engine's packaging shocked the drivers, the cooling breakthrough left the aerodynamicists stunned. In modern Formula One, cooling is often treated as the silent limiter. Radiators, intercoolers, oil tanks, they don't win you races on their own, but they dictate how aggressive your car's shape can be. Too big and you lose airflow efficiency. Too small and your engine cooks itself to death before the checkered flag. It is a balancing act that every technical director fears. But Ferrari's engineers, led by Enrico Gualtieri, claim they've found a way to rewrite the equation. The 678 engine doesn't just run cooler, it demands less cooling altogether. By rethinking combustion efficiency and reconfiguring heat dissipation paths, Ferrari have reduced radiator size requirements by nearly 15% compared to their current unit. That number sounds small until you realize what it means for aerodynamics. 15% less volume isn't just grams saved, it's millimeters gained, airflow untangled, and drag shaved off every straight. For the aerodynamicists in Maranello, this was liberation. Smaller radiators mean tighter side pods, and tighter side pods mean Ferrari can finally chase the narrow-waisted designs that made Red Bull's RB19 and RB20 so dominant. Clean airflow to the floor and diffuser is the single most important currency under ground effect regulations. Every kilogram of downforce generated without drag translates directly into lap time, often 2 or 3 tenths per lap. Hamilton immediately understood the implications. He has spent too many weekends trapped behind rivals, unable to attack because his Ferrari melted its tyres in dirty air. A car with slimmer packaging, improved cooling and stable airflow would finally let him race with confidence, not by overdriving or compensating, but by trusting the machine beneath him. Leclerc, too, recognised the shift. For years, Ferrari's designs had been exercises in compromise. Strong engines bolted into aero-constrained chassis, or clever aero concepts shackled by oversized cooling. Now, for the first time in his career, he saw departments working in harmony, engine, aero and cooling united in a single philosophy. And yet, the cooling story was only the beginning, because Ferrari's weight projections with the 678 weren't just competitive, they were frightening. The next revelation lay in the numbers that every rival fears most, the scales. Weight in Formula One is the invisible enemy. Fans see horsepower figures, straight line speed, and downforce levels. But inside the paddock, engineers obsess over every kilogram. Why? Because excess mass punishes everything. It slows acceleration, dulls direction changes, and, most damaging of all, increases tyre degradation. Ferrari know this better than anyone. The SF23 and SF24 both carried weight above the minimum, forcing setup compromises and leaving their drivers to manage fading tyres rather than attack. With the 2026 regulations mandating a minimum of 768 kilograms, every team is under pressure. But what Ferrari's 678 project revealed is that they're not just meeting the limit, they're chasing it aggressively. Early simulations suggest the compact power unit and reduced cooling mass could cut more than 12 kilograms compared to Ferrari's current architecture. On paper, that alone is worth up to 0.2 per lap at high degradation circuits like Barcelona or Singapore. The real magic, however, isn't in the stopwatch. It's in balance. A lighter engine block and smaller radiators allow Ferrari's designers to redistribute weight with unprecedented precision. Ballast can be shifted lower and more centrally, sharpening rotation in medium-speed corners and stabilizing braking zones. For Hamilton, this is monumental. One of his constant complaints about the SF25 has been awkward braking. The car demanded unnatural inputs, chewing the front tyres too early in a stint. With the 6-7-8 philosophy, the balance shifts back toward a car that flows naturally with his driving style. Leclerc sees something equally important. He's endured countless races where Ferrari started strong only to fade in the final 10 laps. Excess weight meant higher tyre surface temperatures, leading to cliff edge degradation. A car sitting right on the weight minimum with optimized cooling and balanced ballast could finally carry consistent pace across a full race distance. But even as Ferrari celebrated their progress on the scales, another technical frontier loomed. One far trickier than cutting kilograms. Because in 2026, half of every lap will be dictated not by fuel, but by electricity. And Ferrari's reinvention of hybrid deployment may be their boldest gamble yet. The numbers don't lie. Under the 2026 regulations, 50% of total power output must come from electric deployment. That means roughly 475 horsepower out of every lap will be harvested, stored, and unleashed through the energy recovery system. For teams, this isn't just a technical challenge, it's a strategic minefield. Get the balance wrong and you'll have a car that surges one moment and falls flat the next. For years, Ferrari have been guilty of exactly that. Strong combustion power undermined by inconsistent hybrid deployment. But with Project 678, they are rewriting their approach. Instead of treating the ERS as a bolt-on addition, Ferrari have designed the entire power unit around energy flow. More efficient harvesting through the MGUK reduces the drag on braking, and a reconfigured battery pack allows smoother, longer deployment phases. According to internal simulations, this means Ferrari drivers could sustain full electric boost for up to 3.5 seconds longer on straights compared to their 2024 system. At Monza, that difference could be the margin between a failed attack and a decisive overtake. Hamilton immediately grasped the competitive significance. For years at Mercedes, he had mastered the art of timing DRS activation with energy deployment to strike with precision. The frustration at Ferrari was often simple. The boost wasn't there when he needed it. If the 678's ERS delivers as promised, Hamilton can once again weaponize his racecraft, setting up overtakes with confidence, knowing the car won't betray him at the critical moment. Leclerc's vision was different, but no less ambitious. For him, it meant defense. Too many of his defeats came not from pace, but from vulnerability, being caught with drained batteries while rivals surged past. A more flexible, efficient ERS system means fewer laps spent helpless and more races where he can dictate terms rather than react. But bold promises about hybrid systems carry one inevitable shadow: reliability. More efficient harvesting means higher thermal stress. Longer deployment windows mean battery cycles pushed to their limits. And if there's one scar in Ferrari's history that hasn't healed, it's engines failing under pressure. Every Ferrari breakthrough carries a shadow, and that shadow has always been reliability. For every burst of brilliance on the dyno, there has been an explosion on track. Tifosi still remember 2019 when Leclerc lost a certain win in Bahrain as his engine stuttered into limp mode. They remember 2020 when Ferrari's controversial power unit settlement with the FIA left them crippled down the straights. Even in 2022 and 2023, when the Scuderia found genuine pace, the narrative was the same. Engines that were fast but fragile, power units that delivered fireworks one weekend and penalties the next. This is why the 678 project feels so different. Ferrari aren't just chasing numbers, they're chasing integration. In the past, the chassis and engine departments were often at war. One side demanded cooling concessions, the other demanded aero sacrifices. The result was compromise, a car that looked good in testing but unravelled in battle. For the first time in decades, Maranello insiders report that engine design, aerodynamics and reliability programs are being developed hand in hand. No silos, no finger-pointing, a united philosophy. Hamilton's skepticism remains. He has lived through Mercedes' relentless reliability, and he knows how many championships were built not on outright pace, but on bulletproof machinery. For him, Ferrari's true test will not be the wind tunnel numbers, but whether the 678 survives 23 races, 24 if the calendar expands. Leclerc echoes the same sentiment. For all his optimism, he has lost too many podiums to sudden power failures to simply trust words. But even as Ferrari work to prove that the 678 is not another fragile dream, their rivals are watching closely. Because reliability is not just about finishing races, it is about freedom. A team forced to turn down power to preserve engines will never fight for titles. A team confident enough to run at maximum output across an entire season becomes a championship contender overnight. And that is why the paddock's attention has already shifted. Not just to Ferrari's promises, but to how their rivals are preparing to respond. Because if the 678 is real, everyone else has 12 months to catch up. The news of Ferrari's compact 678 power unit didn't stay inside Maranello for long. Formula One's paddock thrives on whispers, and by the time the first rumours of reduced radiator size and weight savings leaked, rivals were already mobilising. Every top team understands the same truth. In 2026, regulation resets are windows of opportunity. Miss that window, and you spend the next 5 years playing catch-up. Mercedes were the first to push back. With a decade of hybrid dominance in their DNA, they remain confident that their experience with ERS deployment will carry them into the new era. Toto Wolff has already hinted at battery advances that could give Mercedes superior harvesting efficiency, allowing them to deploy over entire sectors rather than in bursts. Yet even Mercedes insiders admit Ferrari's packaging solution may force them to rethink cooling strategies from the ground up. Red Bull's situation is more complicated. Their partnership with Ford promises resources, but the transition has been turbulent. The departure of key technical leaders, combined with ongoing political turmoil, means Adrian Newey's design philosophy may not fully carry over. Even so, rivals are cautious. Red Bull have a history of finding performance in the grey areas, and no one is ruling out a late breakthrough. McLaren are perhaps the most intriguing counter. Under Andrea Stella, they have built one of the sharpest technical groups on the grid. With engineers poached from Red Bull and Mercedes, McLaren are focused on refining their aero platform, while waiting to see how Ferrari's cooling and weight advantage manifests in real-world data. And then there's Audi. With Andreas Seidel and even Mattia Binotto in the fold, they're aiming for a competitive debut straight out of the box. The challenge? Unlike Ferrari, they don't have a legacy of hybrid pain to learn from. They're entering unscarred but inexperienced. What unites all these rivals is a new perception of Ferrari. For years, the Scuderia were dismissed as underachievers, famous for promises and infamous for blunders. Now, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, the fear in rival garages is real. But perhaps Ferrari's greatest advantage isn't technical at all. It's psychological. A reset in belief that could prove even more dangerous than any horsepower figure. Technical gains win you tenths. Psychological resets win you seasons. That's what makes Ferrari's 678 project so remarkable. For Hamilton and Leclerc, the early simulations were not just numbers on a screen, they were lifelines. For Hamilton, the move to Ferrari was meant to be a dream, yet for most of 2025, it has looked like a compromise. He swapped bulletproof Mercedes machinery for a car that demanded awkward braking patterns, punished his natural rhythm, and left him fighting to adapt. Critics asked if he had miscalculated, if chasing the scarlet car had cost him a final shot at glory. But the 678 sketches changed that narrative. For the first time since leaving Mercedes, Hamilton could envision a Ferrari that played to his instincts, not against them. A compact, balanced machine capable of flowing with his style could turn his decision into vindication. For Leclerc, the impact is even deeper. He has been Ferrari's loyal servant, carrying the Tifosi's hopes while enduring 18 years of championship drought. Each false dawn, whether in 2019, 2022 or 2023, left scars. The 678's philosophy of unity between engine, aero and reliability is more than an engineering blueprint. It is proof to Leclerc that Ferrari are finally listening, finally breaking the cycle of compromise that defined his career. To him, this is not just about horsepower, it is validation. And then there are the Tifosi. Monza this year was a reminder of their unmatched devotion. Seas of red, chants louder than engines, unwavering belief even after nearly 2 decades without a title. The whispers of a revolutionary engine have electrified them further. Ferrari are no longer the butt of rival jokes. They are the ones to fear. That change in perception is priceless, because belief spreads. When drivers believe, they drive sharper. When mechanics believe, they work faster. When rivals believe Ferrari are dangerous, pressure shifts. And in Formula One, pressure creates cracks. Which brings us to the ultimate question. Can Ferrari turn all this promise into points? Or will the 678 become another glorious theory undone by reality when the lights go out? In Formula One, every revolution is measured not in sketches or simulations, but in points. For Ferrari, the stakes of the 678 project extend far beyond Maranello's wind tunnel. They are written into the mathematics of the championship itself. Since 2008, Ferrari have watched 17 titles slip away. In the hybrid era alone, Mercedes stacked 8 consecutive constructors' crowns, and Red Bull now look poised to build a dynasty of their own. That's nearly 2 decades of Ferrari living in the shadow of others. The Tifosi count every year, every missed opportunity, every painful gap in the record books. By the time the 2026 regulations arrive, it will be 18 full years since Ferrari last lifted a championship. That drought is not just a statistic. It is a weight pressing down on every mechanic, every strategist, and every driver who dons the scarlet suit. And this is what makes the 678 so powerful, not just technically, but symbolically. A compact, lighter, more efficient power unit that integrates seamlessly with the aero concept is not simply an engineering achievement, it is a statement of intent that Ferrari are no longer patching leaks but building foundations. That Hamilton's gamble to leave Mercedes and Leclerc's loyalty through years of heartbreak might both be vindicated in the same moment. The mathematics are compelling. A car that saves 12 kilograms, recovers 0.3 per lap through cooling efficiency, and extends electric deployment by 3.5 seconds per straight is not chasing scraps. It is fighting for championships. Over 23 races, those margins could swing 50 to 70 points, the difference between runner-up and world champion. But Formula One history is brutal. Every revolution comes with risk. Will Ferrari's reliability demons stay buried? Will rivals like Mercedes and McLaren find countermeasures before the first lights out in 2026? Or is this truly Ferrari's long-awaited reset? Because if Hamilton and Leclerc's stunned reactions are any indication, the 678 engine is not just another Ferrari promise. It might be the weapon that finally rewrites the balance of power.